Welcome everyone. We're gonna get started in a few minutes. You'll be all joining muted and with video off, but feel free to use the chat to talk with us or ask questions at any time. We'll just wait a few minutes here as folks are coming in. We are recording this webinar. It will be available on our website. So if you see the notice there, that's what that's about. Again, welcome everyone. We're going to get started in just a few minutes, giving folks a minute to come through the waiting room. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat while we're waiting. Tell us who you are, where you're from. Welcome. So again, you're all joining muted and with your video off, but the chat is open and we welcome you and encourage you to introduce yourself in the chat and ask questions in the chat at any time. So while we're waiting, I think we're going to put up a poll. Oh, sorry, it looks like the chat is being worked on here, so stay tuned, the chat is coming. We're working on those restrictions for the chat, so just give us a moment there. Okay, looks like the chat is fixed, so feel free to use that chat function to introduce yourself and ask questions at any time during the webinar. Again, welcome everyone. We're waiting for folks to come into the Zoom and come to the waiting room. We'll be starting in just a minute. So again, you're all joining muted and with your video off, but feel free to use the chat. Here's a poll. We ask you all to take the poll if you're able about how you found out about us and about this webinar. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started here. Hello and welcome. My name is Bray Blackley. I'm Managing Director for Dance and Ballet at Advisory Board for the Arts. Thank you all so much for joining us today. You can see many of your colleagues are introducing themselves in the chat. Please feel free to do so. We'd love to hear from you and also hear your questions anytime during the webinar. We'll try to answer them as we can. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started here. So again, hello and welcome. My name is Bray Blackley. I'm Managing Director for Dance and Ballet for Advisory Board for the Arts. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time and are not yet familiar with Advisory Board for the Arts, I'm going to tell you a little bit about who we are. ABA is a global research and advisory firm that is bringing to arts organizations a completely new approach to identifying and implementing breakthrough ideas. We're focused on building long-term partnerships, developing breakthrough research initiatives, and providing customized support to our members. For more information about us, you can check out our website, which is advisoryarts.com. So at this point, you're probably all Zoom experts. Just to note that given the large number of people on this call, we will keep everyone muted with the video off for the session, but you are all encouraged and welcome to use the chat to ask questions and connect with one another. I'm joined today by my colleague, Lisa Swain, who will keep track of your questions, so feel free to start entering them at any time. We'd also love to hear from you and see exactly who's joined us. So again, please introduce yourself in the chat. We are delighted to have a broad range of organizations and individuals joining us today. as you can see on this list of attendees for today's conversation. We have global representation from all genres of arts and culture, and welcome to all of you. But before we dive into today's discussion, let's take a quick look at what's coming up next for Scottish Ballet in digital. I'm going to ask Kate Carter, who's with us here from Scottish Ballet, to quickly set up this video for us. Kate?
Hi everyone. So this is an extract from our very first feature film, The Secret Theatre, which we released just before Christmas. We made it available just in the few days leading up to Christmas. And you're going to hear a bit more about that in the case study later. So I thought it would be nice to just share a short segment to give you a feel for what Scottish Ballet looks like on screen. And I hope you enjoy it.
That's great. Thanks so much for sharing that with us, Kate and Antonia. Such a spectacular, dance work on digital, and really, really great. I was so excited. I got to see that with my kids and they just really loved it. So so happy to be here with you talking about that and your other digital efforts today. In ABA's recent member summit, Demystifying Digital Content Monetization, we discussed the crucial role that choosing a defined audience plays in building a successful digital model. We also explored a number of different approaches to defining those audiences and also digital models. And today we are thrilled to take a deeper look at Scottish Ballet's freemium membership model. I now want to introduce my colleague, Laura Ponomarev, ABA's research director, who will take us through the case study and also lead the discussion with today's panelists. But before I do that, I want to welcome again Kate Carter and Antonia Brownlee from Scottish Ballet. We'll speak more with Kate and Antonia later in today's session, but now I'd like to give you both the opportunity to introduce yourself. So Kate, would you like to start?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm the, actually this is slightly out of date because Antonia and I have both been recently promoted. So we are now Director of Brand, Audience and Digital and Director of Philanthropy, which is a very nice thing to say and celebrate. But so I head up the what previously had been called the marketing and sales department, but is now the brand, audience, and digital department. And that's a really key to, I guess, the way that we think about those functions, is that kind of more holistic view, where it's not as transactional as perhaps sales and marketing used to be. And I don't know, is that enough of an introduction, Bri? Do you want to say anything about my background or anything like that? Or?
No, that sounds great. That sounds great. So, Antonia?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Antonia. I'm Director of Philanthropy. First time I've said that out loud. I have been at Scottish Ballet for over 10 years in sort of various guises, but really oversee any philanthropic donation, whether that be from a trust and foundation, a large event like a gala, or our major donors and our friends scheme. And now obviously work very closely with Kate on the membership scheme.
That's great. So Kate and Antonia have very graciously offered to answer your questions in the chat, and we'll also try to pepper them through the conversation. So again, feel free to pop those in there and we'll get to them as we can. Now I'll turn things over to Laura to take us through the case study.
Thanks so much, Bray. Hi, everyone. Glad to be with you here today. So before we dive into the work that Kate, Antonia, and the rest of the Scottish Ballet team did, let's just take a quick look at the world of digital monetization, just to give you some context about what you're going to see, so you can begin to figure out what you can take from today, what you learned from today, and implement it within your own organization. So while creating content in a digital format is newer to many organizations, we know that you've all been very busy during closure, whether it was making creative use of your archives or creating a brand new digital content or building paywalls, selecting a video streaming partner. You moved quickly to experiment and do lots of new things in the digital space. We've been keeping track of what you've been doing, and it's certainly a lot. From what we saw, we laid out the major digital content models on this page, from left to right, with left being less direct ways to monetize the content and right being more direct ways. You'll see all the different approaches that we've seen, from sponsorships to distribution models, to asking for donations, to single tickets, to selling packages. There are lots of different ways to approach digital content. And many arts organizations are using multiple models together. So in this world where there's so much going on, the question then becomes, what model or combination should you use? Well, when trying to answer that question, most arts organizations run straight to the questions that are on the left-hand side of the page, and understandably so. These questions are all what, how questions, like that first one on the left there. What is the ideal content length? Or the fourth one down, what should we charge? Now, these aren't bad questions per se, but they are all execution oriented. They're all about the what and how to do digital content. The issue with focusing on these questions first is encapsulated in the light blue box on the bottom left of the page, as you see there. These execution questions make the assumption about solutions without figuring out what the goal of all this digital content is first. And without a goal, it's a bit like walking about a maze without a map. You think you might be heading in a fruitful direction, only to hit a dead end. Now, on the right is what leading arts organizations like Scottish Ballet do instead. They focus on the why first, uncovering their goal and their target audience. Once you know your why, your goal, and your who, your audience, then you can start asking those how questions. And by the way, now those how questions are much clearer because your goal and your target audience will shape the approach you take. So it's hard to know what type of content to create or how long it should be or how much you should charge if you don't know why you're creating that content. And so with that in mind, let's see what Scottish Ballet's goal was and how that shaped their digital content strategy. A reminder here for folks as we go through this case, please put your questions in the chat throughout. We'll definitely get to them during and after the case. So feel free to put the questions in the chat at any time. Here you can see Scottish Ballet's freemium membership started with a question that many organizations have been asking themselves. And you see that on the top of the page. In the pandemic setting where everything is digital, how do you build a sustainable new digital audience without diminishing value for your existing donors and subscribers? So Scottish Ballet's goal was to build a new audience via digital, one that would serve as a foundation for them and build pathways to develop those new audience members into long-term patrons, subscribers, and donors, including returning back to live performances locally as they started up again, and globally developing a long-term audience base. Their solution, a free membership program that starts with email newsletters, which create pathways to paid for and donation-based content, including classes, films, and online events. This starts with free and leads to revenue generating is a great example of a freemium model. This way, their membership doesn't conflict with other donor or subscriber levels. Instead, has pathways to those levels. It casts a broad net for future audiences, both locally and globally, and creates a bridge to their digital content, which you will see more about in a moment. A free membership is a great idea to cultivate new audiences. The big question is, how do we incent someone to join and give us their contact information so we can begin to develop a relationship with them? We know that many folks today are hesitant to give out their information. And of course, many arts organizations have told us they struggle to build those mailing lists. So let's take a look on the next page at how Scottish Ballet does it. We can see how Scottish Ballet's quest for new audiences connects well with their freemium membership model. They're able to attract new members and get those members to give them their contact information, leading to those future development opportunities. As you see on the left-hand side of the page, Scottish Ballet makes it enticing and easy to join. Initially, a new member is just asked for their name and address, an email address. Only later on are they asked to provide their preferences and additional contact information. By reducing as many barriers as possible to initially sign up, the ballet draws in members quickly. And as a member, they get valuable benefits, as you see on the right. Scottish Ballet conducted research and continues to conduct research on potential new audiences to understand the unique appeal of the ballet. This led them to give members access to members-only film releases and events, many with donation requests attached, a digital magazine, email updates, and access to purchase ballet classes. These features are things that members value and things that lead to earned and contributed income and opportunities, shifting those free members into paying customers. It's definitely a little give for a lot of get. As for Scottish Ballet, who's able to gather member contact, location, and preference data, they get a lot too. With that data, they can tailor customer experiences and build relationships. So Kate, I'd love to bring you in here and ask you a quick question about this. Can we tell us a little bit more about how you conducted the audience research that helps you identify the elements of a membership that would be valuable to your digital audiences?
Sure. So before the pandemic, we knew that we wanted to overhaul our friend scheme, and so we started with quite a big piece of research coming at the back of our 50th anniversary in 2019 to understand the current perceptions of the company among those existing audiences, but also the potential audiences that we weren't already serving. And I think that was really important because a lot of research prior to that had been only focused on existing audiences. And so we did a market survey to get a sample of arts audiences within Scotland to understand what their current perceptions of Scottish Ballet were they aware of us, but also what they might be interested in experiencing from us. So we learned a lot from that. And then it's definitely an ongoing process. So we're now rolling out a lot of that research beyond Scotland. So last year we did some focus groups with online focus groups with audiences in the UK and the US. And we're now, the kind of qualitative insights from those, we're rolling into a much more expansive market sample survey for the UK. So we're really trying to kind of size the UK market for dance and particularly for digital experiences for dance. And also there's an element of knowing about the products that we already had that were valuable. So we included our classes in this because they were something that were already a hugely valuable asset. And classes were something that we were putting on sale and would sell out instantly to an existing audience base. And so we knew that there was scope there to grow that and that would attract people in and be a hook.
Yeah, I love that, Kate. I love the idea of this being ongoing. For me, it's the same is true customer experience research. It's never done. The customer keeps evolving and changing, and there are new customers to learn about. So I think that that's a great element in understanding, to your point, both what people already love to do, but also what they may want to do in the future, and combining those things together. It's a great way to think about it. So thanks so much. It sounds like you did some and are continue to do lots of research to really understand your audience base. It's great, but it doesn't just stop here with the membership. Scottish Ballet does go one step further to cement that relationship with their members. Let's take a look at that on the next page. So Scottish Ballet wants members to feel like they joined a community, right? And aren't just partaking in a transaction of personal information for digital content. The ballet starts this feeling of community from their very first email, which you see here on the page. The messaging and word choice is deliberate, carefully chosen to convey the message that this member is now part of something that's bigger than themselves. We've called out several ways that the ballet messages this. Starting on the top left box, they directly speak to their goal, telling members, welcome to our world, and explicitly mentioning becoming part of the community. Moving up to the call out on the top right, Scottish Ballet uses friendly and conversational language, hello there, we're really chuffed, to convey the authentic tone and a real genuine desire to make a personal connection with the member. And when they do ask something, they frame their ask with what I like to call WIFM, or what's in it for me. See that bolded, can we get to know you a wee bit better? It actually links to the ask for additional preference and contact information I mentioned earlier. But they surround the ask with what members get: great digital content and a more tailored experience. It's all about what the member needs, not Scottish Ballet. That makes the member much more likely to click on the link and give their information. It's in their best interest, right? As you step back and take in this email in its entirety, you get the feeling that this is just a bit different, something a bit more than a set of benefits you get in exchange for signing up for a mailing list. Now, to create this kind of thing doesn't actually happen overnight. Some work is involved, but Kate Antonia told us that the benefits of the membership program are far outweigh the costs, and let's take a look at that on the next page. So let's look at what Scottish Ballet gets from the membership program. You can see on the left here. First and foremost, they can collect audience data, not just the names and email addresses, but also the physical addresses that allow them to have that location data. This, along with their other preference information, allows them to do the second thing on the left-hand side, personalize the member's journey to serve them up more the type of content and experiences that they like. And they can do those things at scale digitally. Finally, the last two bullets, brand awareness and audience bond strengthening. The membership can build brand among new audience members and deepens it with those who already know and love Scottish Ballet. On the right, they did want to, of course, share what went into creating the membership. Firstly, and importantly, and we just discussed this with Kate before, was that audience research they did and continue to do to understand the unique appeal of Scottish Ballet to potential new audiences. That really helped them figure out how to configure the membership. They also had to build a technical back-end system to pull all the disparate pieces they had across their website into one experience for the member. Thirdly, and they said this was critical, was how to ensure there was internal collaboration across departments to work together to create a membership with different components from and impacts on each team. Members, of course, they don't really care that there are different departments working on classes and videos. They want to experience it all together as part of their membership, and they want it to feel seamless. Finally, Scottish Ballet did create some new events, ones that were revenue generating, and created opportunities to ask new members to join a giving level afterwards. So yes, this was definitely some work to pull together, but as you can see, it's well worth the effort. Now, Antonia, I'd love to get you in here a bit. I know we just mentioned that developing that internal team cohesion was critical. Can you talk about why that cohesion was so important and some tactics you used to create it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's worth pointing out, first of all, that, as a fundraising team, we were very used to working with Kate's team on fundraising leaflets, and we were very used to working with the engagement team on developing trust applications for their work that they were carrying out in the community. So this wasn't unusual, and likewise for Kate working with us and the engagement team working with us. Scottish Ballet works very hard to make sure there isn't silo working. We try and work really cohesively. But I think what was different about this was that we had to work as one team. It wasn't about what was in it for my department. Was I going to raise money from this? Was Kate going to, sell more tickets? It was about all of us working towards one goal of this 1 million members by 2025. So I think, as Kate said earlier, it is a little bit of a work in progress still, and there have been some bumps along the way. But I think the biggest thing that's made a difference is we have obviously regular catch-ups as a full group of people from each department, but also redefining people's job descriptions has been quite key. So people understand that their roles have now altered to work together. And I think that's made a real difference. So that's something I think we would probably both recommend if anybody was thinking about doing this.
Yeah, no, I think that's so right. Sometimes, a lot of the research we have about change management, et cetera, talks a lot about the clarity of role. A lot of people want to do the right thing, but if they don't know what the right thing is to do because it's new, they can get frustrated easily. So redoing those job descriptions, giving people really clear guidance as to here's what we expect you to do is a great move. And obviously it was usually very successful to helping people get over that hump of, I want to do the right thing, but I just don't know what the right thing is quite yet. There is a question in the chat I want to put to both Kate, you, and Antonia, so whoever would like to answer it first. The question in the chat was, can you tell us a bit more about the technical backend system that provides that seamless front-end experience? Is it a platform that you designed internally, or did you, purchase a platform on the market to do that?
I can jump in there. We use Tessitura as our CRM system, and then that plugs into Wordfly as our email marketing. We had to use Tessitura before. We've been using it for a few years, but I would say we were not using it to its full capacity at all. We were not joining the dots in terms of the customer experience. And also, I would not say that we're 100% there with it yet either. It's definitely a journey. But we've invested a lot in the last couple of years on really overhauling the way all of our data is structured in Tessitura, and the way that the teams work together. We've done a huge amount of investment in staff training and kind of sending people from multiple departments together on the same training courses or devising training sessions that are group sessions, and kind of really sort of partnered with Tessitura in a lot of that. So that has been really helpful.
Great, awesome. And I think there's another one in the chat I think is pretty relevant for this page before we move on. So Graydon asks, how many team members would you say it takes to execute something like this? So I know people are probably working on it part of their jobs part-time, but if you think about in general, how many folks do you think you have working on this?
So it's not a fixed number. It's, again, it's like with all of these things, the answer is it's changing and growing. But we haven't, in the first year or so, we haven't increased our headcount at all to do this. That was the first point. So that we've done a lot of this work by just refocusing existing staff members. And we're now at the point where we're starting to hire more people and grow the team. And there's kind of definitely a growth trajectory. That the more members we have and the more people that we convert to the higher levels, the more we will need to grow to service that. So I guess all in all, there's probably about, what would you say, Antonia, like 10 or so people for whom this is part of their job, but not, it's, we're only just at the point now where there's a couple of people where this is their whole job. It's for most people, it's an aspect of what they do, among other things.
So yeah, it sounds like you're having about 10 people, but they're doing it as, maybe 50% or less of their time, and sort of, obviously kind of doing other things as well. No, that's helpful. And during closure, I'm assuming there was probably some time that freed up for people who might have been doing other things that you could replace with this time, as opposed to not having as much for them to do during those periods as well. Great, awesome. Well, this is, of course, the getting the membership together was one piece of it, but the next piece, of course, to really help it to pay off was how you connected it to opportunities to really cement relationships and to revenue generating opportunities. So let's take a look at that on the next page. So now that Scottish Ballet has had the membership, they of course now need to ensure that they're building those pathways towards both paid for and donation-based events, while also beginning to form those building blocks for those longer term relationships. The holiday production, The Secret Theater, which you saw that great clip of earlier, is a good example of how they created those pathways. The Secret Theater was their digital holiday offering, of course, and it featured the most popular characters from their previous holiday shows captured on film. So while the film was a hit with current audiences, it also served to show new members what they could expect from Scottish Ballet. It showed off what Scottish Ballet uniquely does well and stood out from other holiday productions because of that. This put Scottish Ballet's best foot forward in terms of a first impression with new audiences, with the goal of cementing a good building block in a long-term relationship. And while the show itself was free, the Scottish Ballet did have a smart way to ask for donations, which were optional. When someone registered for the free show to get the link, they had to write in the donation amount, even if it was zero, into the donation box. And as we all know, writing in a zero is a hard thing to do. So by making people take a conscious action in the donation box, they made it much more likely that someone would put in an amount, even a small amount. You can see the logistics on the right-hand side. I won't go into detail here, but consider it some good take-home information. But you can see they've laid out how they created the content and the people involved, the platform they used, which is a private YouTube link, which of course they chose because they wanted to have a broad an audience as possible. Their partnerships with some of the other ballets to broaden their reach even more. I saw a question in just in the chat about that, so you can see a little bit more about how they worked with some of the theaters and the ballets that they partner with and they tour with. And also how they were efficient with using what they had to create content rather than starting from scratch. As you can see in a moment, the show was quite a success for the ballet and it helped them build their membership even more. Overall, this membership approach has really started to pay off, and you'll see that on the next page. Just to note, this is the last page we're going to cover before we go into our Q&A time, so please queue up your questions in the chat box, keep them coming in. As of February, Scottish Ballet had over 60,000 active members. I'm sure you folks can give us an update on that. I'm sure it's continued to grow since that time. And those are active members, those who regularly open communications and interact with content. They started by converting their 40,000 newsletter subscribers to members and got a nice bump from their holiday production, The Secret Theater. But the overall growth in just 4 months shows that members see value and awareness is steadily growing. As those members have turned into paying customers, as well, as you see on the right. It's still early days, but Scottish Ballet has seen initial success. The Secret Theater not only increased membership, but also brought in a healthy amount of donations, with 50% of viewers donating to this free performance. Scottish Ballet has seen a significant increase in revenue for their online classes and events, in no small part because they could increase capacity and reduce costs. And they have even begun to convert some free members into paying friends or donors after these events. So using a freemium model, Scottish Ballet has developed a membership program that is successful at gathering something that is often difficult, new customer contact information, to build their mailing lists and develop members into tomorrow's subscribers and donors. It'll be really exciting to see how this program continues to develop in the coming months, and also how it develops as Scottish Ballet returns to live performances as well. So with that, we will kind of close down the case part and we'll start up on the Q&A. There's a couple of questions in the chat already, so we'll start off with those. And Antonia, I'd love for you to weigh in here first on this one, but Kate, feel free to chime in as well. I know you had worked with some of the touring companies you tour with for Secret Ballet, but there's a question here about did you consider partnering with other cultural organizations, either in Scotland or other ballet companies throughout the world? And so I was wondering if there's any broader thoughts on partnership as you continue to build these memberships. Oh, I think I'm having some problem hearing Antonia. No, Kate, if you could maybe jump in, maybe Antonia.
Yeah, sure. So with the Secret Theatre, we specifically partnered with our main touring partners in the UK. So six theatres across Scotland, Northern Ireland, and England, who. And the main reason for that really was about supporting the theatres, and we were very cognizant of the fact that the venues were in a much worse position than us through the pandemic, with their reliance on box office income. And so we had a message at the beginning of the film that was very much about supporting your local theatre, as a kind of message from our CEO, asking people to donate not just to us, but to their local theatre. And as part of the booking process for the film, we asked people to opt in to hear from their local theatre as well, if the local theatre was one of our 6 partners, to share that data and again encourage people to donate. That partnership was really kind of aimed at trying to benefit the theatres, but also because the theatres then promoted the film to their databases, that also helped us with that promotion and kind of acquiring new audiences as well. And it's a great question in terms of the future. I'm not sure what that kind of partnership strategy will look like for us yet. I think one of the things we've been focused on is trying to figure out what it is that we have to offer that feels differentiated, I guess, in what is a very crowded market at the moment with everyone offering digital content. So maybe there will be, I guess, kind of clusters of organizations that start to come out of the pandemic that think similarly to us about this. But yeah, that would be really interesting. I'm not sure what the answer to that is.
I'm sure it'll evolve over time, definitely. And I think Antonia's back with us.
So
Great.
sorry. Typical,
no. Technical difficulties are a way of life. Glad that you're able to fix it. I have actually a great question for you here, given your focus. Jessica's asking, how do you continue to make paying friends feel special with so much free content? I think it's a great question.
That's a really good question as well, and one actually I was quite worried about, as Kate will testify to, about making sure that they still felt part of our inner circle rather than just the community that Kate was talking about and that appears in our communications. It was about the friends being the inner circle and the patrons being the family. So we've got quite a clear program in place of where we want these people to go, and the more they do, the more bespoke treatment and contact they would have with us. But I think specifically around the membership scheme, we made sure that the friends were aware about it before anybody else was aware about it. We communicated with them that things were shifting on the back end, if you like, but that they were going to have more benefits than ever before for no extra membership fee. And actually, we envisaged that we might have a few people complaining and saying, "Oh, I'm not sure about this. I'm paying. Why is it different?" But we had one person who was just a little bit confused about what they had to do to make sure that they could access the free films and the events that were going online. So not a single complaint actually out of about 600 friends. And then what we do is we make sure that we continued the events that involved maybe a choreographer and a principal dancer for the patrons, rather than say a member of a wardrobe technician and an artist from the company that was speaking at an event. So we made sure there was a sort of hierarchy, if you like, in terms of the events that we were offering people. And yeah, so far, touch wood, it's been a success. Nobody has any complaints.
Yeah, everyone feels that they get their kind of special piece. I know it's
Absolutely.
hard to doing some thinking ahead of time, as you said, of what the hierarchy is or what your approach is and your strategy is. Always makes sense in being clear and communicating that transparency and communicating that to your friends, especially, and to your existing patrons. I've heard that to be super important as we kind of move into this time of trying out these different models and trying some new things out. I think that's great. A technical question here, maybe Kate, you could help with is, did you use a third-party technical backend system platform to integrate with your website, or was this built internally?
Yeah, so we invested quite a lot of website development with our kind of existing web agency and with Testatura. We use TNew, which is their kind of online commercial side of things, so we've done quite a lot of work on that, but to be truthful, I think we've gone as far as we can with our existing website, and the next step for us actually is to rebuild and to build a new website from scratch with membership at its heart. So that is what we're scoping out now. We've kind of done as much kind of retrofitting as we can, and we've sort of recognized, I think, that our current website is reaching the end of its life cycle, and rather than investing more money in that, we're going to sort of only maintain it in terms of essential updates and things from the dev side of things, and actually focus on scoping out and building a new website that is primarily based around a membership experience, that is a hub for members and that has other aspects that are more of a kind of public shop window.
Got it. That makes sense. Yeah. I guess a question here, I don't know if it's for you, Kate or Antonio, so either of you could take it. Vanessa is interested in sharing your survey strategy and identifying content that would meet your patrons and donors' interests. So trying to understand a little bit maybe what the questions asked or how you approach it to get to gauge the interest of your patrons and donors and the types of content that are included in membership.
I mean, from my perspective, in terms of making sure that our patrons are getting what they want, we do a slightly separate survey every year to the one that we were referring to at the beginning of the discussion, which is our annual survey that actually includes our, references our KPIs for the year, which allows us to then report back to the board. And the questions that we ask them are, what do they want to hear? What do they want to receive from us in terms of appeals? What would they like to have in terms of events? So we ask them those questions in a very short 2-page survey every year. And the thing that always comes back from them is that they want to engage with the dancers. That's their biggest marker for engaging with us, is to support the dancers, but to meet the dancers and feel like they are supporting them financially, but also if they can come to an event that they're speaking at or a performance they're performing at. But that's it's a probably slightly different question to the one that Kate was probably asking in the survey we did at the very beginning of this. I'll hand back to Kate for that one.
Yes, I guess for potential audiences, it was trying to think about, again, we're still working through this. We're looking at applying a segmentation model to our database. So we're going to be using Morris Hargreaves McIntyre's culture segments, for anyone that's familiar with those. So they're kind of attitudinal segmentation rather than a sort of more demographic one. And so what we're trying to understand is where we've got what types of these new members will have the propensity and the interest and the capacity, I suppose, to give at higher levels so that we can cultivate them differently. And we've still got lots to learn, I think, about that. But definitely the events that we've tried, we've basically been doing a lot of just trying things. So we've tried offering priority booking, both for events and for classes. And it's interesting to see what the take up for that is among the kind of the paying friends and patrons. We've done dedicated events just for friends and patrons, and then we've had events where it's open to all members, friends and patrons, and just kind of how we message that, who hears about it first, what the content of those events is. We do surveys after each event. So we're kind of learning a lot as we go, what is resonating with people, what are they willing to pay for, what are they willing to book for, and so on.
I think that's so true. It's true that the research is critical, but it only takes you so far. And then you have to start to test out actual willingness to pay for things and attend for things. So people will say, oh, I like this, or I want that. But then when you have to be able to quickly kind of A/B test or try things out and evolve it over time as well. That's great. I have a question here from Jennifer that I think is really important, and I'm going to give both of you a shot at it, but I'm going to start with you, Kate, which is, how do you see this membership model evolving as you transition to in-house performances?
That's a really good question, and we don't know the answer to it because we launched it in October. So the vision is definitely not for it to be the case that the digital membership that the free membership is digital and that the in-person experiences are paid for. That's not the line that we want to draw. We want to be able to offer free and paid for experiences at different levels, both digitally and in person. So that's the vision. We've got lots of ideas about how that might work. So for example, we've talked about when we go back into a touring world, how we might be able to, now that we have much better data access with our members who are ticket buyers, how we can communicate more around their ticket buying experience, so upselling things, but also giving them additional content around the show that we know they're coming to see. Also, when they're actually in the theatre, whether we can have maybe like a members area where they can meet up in the bar and have that kind of more community experience. Whether there's ways that we can do kind of that, I think it's like a Disney term, this, but surprise and delight. If we know it's someone's birthday, how we might be able to message that. That's the kind of blue sky stuff of like how we might be able to take what we know about them from this digital experience and bring it into their in-person interactions with us. But obviously, a lot of our membership base, if it continues to grow in the way that we hope, will be international and will not be seeing us in person, certainly not frequently. We will be touring outside of Scotland again, but not as frequently as we are within Scotland. So it is really important that we can still find the capacity to have these really creative experiences for members, friends and patrons wherever they are in the world, and that they don't feel like they're missing out on what's happening in person in Scotland. So that'll be a real challenge for us, is to try and get that balance right. So yeah, we'll keep you posted.
Antonia, you want to add anything to that?
Nothing. I think Kate's covered all of it, actually.
Oh, great. And Kate, I know when I talked to you, it said something that resonated a lot with me, which is that you folks talk about content. You don't talk about digital content or live content. You think about it just as content. And then sometimes it's digital and sometimes it's live, which I think fits nicely into the sense of that sentiment of, it's not that live is going to be, paid for and digital is going to be, free, and thinking more about it from the use case perspective and things like that. So I think that's quite interesting. Great. Well, here's another question. There's lots of great questions in the chat. Thanks to everybody for continuing to add in your questions. We have time for a few more. So if you have a last minute question, please put it in. Question here, Antonia, I'll turn to you first. Do you think that this free model would work to develop a specific market, so a younger audience perhaps, and introduce them and develop them into future donors and attendees? So they're asking, is it focusing on a smaller segment worth the effort? And what's your thought there?
Actually, Kate and I, when we initially started embarking on this with the research, the area that we sort of removed from the whole discussion was our young friends and our younger audiences that might be taking part in dance classes for kids up to 14, or buying our merchandise, or their young friends of Scottish Ballet as part of the Friends membership. And they were sort of put to one side because there was such a lot to deal with as it was. And actually, it's something that we've realized we feel that needs some addressing. We feel that there's probably a lot of scope to have a much more strategic review of the young person's interaction with Scottish Ballet, wherever they might come, as a whole. And that's something we're going to be embarking on, well, hopefully by the autumn, Kate, is that right? We're hoping from the autumn onwards to start looking at that a bit more, so that we have more of a cohesive picture. So it's a bit like jury's out at the moment, but certainly I think there's definitely more work we can do. Kate's probably got a bit more to add on that.
No, I think yeah, that's it really. I think we haven't narrowed the scope of who a member is, other than, as Tonya said, we kind of focused on adults. Other than, I guess, trying to define our target market as people who are already interested in dance, so we're not going after the entire population. I think that's important to try and have sort of a accurate picture of what the potential market is, for people who are actually willing to buy tickets to watch dance, whether it's on screen or on stage, or who will want to pay for dance classes. So trying to kind of hone in the market a bit to that extent, that people who are already willing to pay for dance in some form, whether it's an event or a class or a film or a performance. And then, yeah, as Antonia said, we're gonna scope out a potential membership program for young people quite separately, because we kind of need to do that in consultation with young people. I think we need to kind of co-create that even more than we have done with this one.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's a good point you both made, that I would say that it's specific to whoever is asking the question to really, size that market first and understand what is the size of that market, and thinking of it as not just the people of a specific age, but also, to Kate, to your point, people who would show interest in the art and in attending. So definitely doing that market sizing up front is a critical first step. Great. Antonia, another question for you about donor acquisition strategy. This person's asking, as a donor acquisition strategy, how does the freemium membership kind of compare to general appeals to subscribers and ticket buyers? And so I guess, how do you think about the messaging to these different groups? Was it the same, or how did you sort of tailor it to the different audiences?
I mean, once the pandemic started in March 2020, my sole focus was retention of donors. And when Kate came back from maternity leave, then we had this bigger discussion around this membership and bringing in the freemium level. And I think at the time, we, as Kate was saying earlier, we were trialing and testing things, and we still are. I mean, the next 6 months, are really up until the summer, are going to be a series of events that we're going to see what level of interest we get, and then the conversion that we get afterwards. So what we're doing at the moment with members is they're coming along to events. They've had about maybe 3, I think, since January, and they have another one next week. And after they've been to that event, we're sending them a survey. And then we are also sending them an offer to become a friend of Scottish Ballet with 1 month's free if they sign up online. And so far we've had, over the 3 events, I think we've had around about 20 friends sign up as a direct result of them coming to those events as a member, and promoting to them the benefits they would get as a paid friend as part of that. So far, I mean, small successes, but actually, as we say, I think we're going to have probably more success when we can do some more things in person. I think it's got the point now where it sort of donor fatigue a little bit around some online events. And I think people want to be able to come and engage with us either at a performance or an event in person. So I think we'll have a little bit more success around those as well. But at the moment, it's just been about offering them the chance to become a friend. And then the next offer we're going to have will be around our biannual appeals that where we raise money for, say, new costumes for a ballet or commissioning and staging a new ballet. And we will probably trial out some of those appeals on the membership base based on the preferences that they have already indicated that they're interested in. So that's something we've not yet tried, but we'll hopefully try that this summer when we're launching an appeal to hopefully get back on stage in the autumn.
I think tailoring those appeals to the preferences which they've filled out, super critical. And also, you know, it's good to see that there is some success, right? With you said small successes, but, you know, obviously good indication that people are moving along the funnel, as it were, right? Which is great. Awesome. A couple of last questions we have before we wrap up here. This one's for you, Kate. You had mentioned that you had been underutilizing, Tessitura. So Deanna's asking, when you said you had to unlock Tessitura and you had been underutilizing it, was there like an additional cost to take your existing tool to the next level, or was it just that there were features that we were previously just not utilizing enough?
Yeah, it's a combination of things. I think the biggest one was about investment in staff, actually. And in terms of recruitment and then training and ongoing training, and training people not just in the area of Tessitura that they needed for the kind of day-to-day, but giving them that broader understanding so that they could see how what they do day-to-day fits into the bigger picture. So that's a big part of it. And then also, we have invested kind of directly with Tessitura in terms of like some time with them, so some of their expert hours and workshopping and kind of doing some audience journey mapping and things like that, as well as some development spend as well in terms of the connectivity really with our website and our email, and making sure that helped the membership journey function. So it was kind of there was investment across a few different areas.
Makes sense, totally. One last question here. It's for either you, Antonia, or Kate. It's about music rates. So are music rates for streaming driving what content you present, and how are you balancing that increased expense with limited revenue? So I'll give it to either of you to take that one.
I think this is probably me. Rights is really, really complicated, no question. It's not just the music. It's obviously we have lots of considerations with our dancers and what's in their agreements in terms of what we can commercialize and not, and also, you know, our back of house technical staff and so on. There's a number of layers to that question. So it's definitely complicated. And again, we've been kind of trying and learning as we go. On the music question specifically, there's been a few things we've had to consider. One is that we obviously wanted to try and give our orchestra some work in this past year, where we don't have they're not kind of on staff. We have a freelance orchestra, but we specifically did a recording with them for the Secret Theatre to give them that a session call and buying out as part of that the ability to use that obviously for the film distribution. but also having to be canny about, the music choices we make. So sometimes our artistic director will set as part of a brief to a choreographer that he commissions that they have to use, a piece of classical music that is out of copyright, so that we have an existing recording of, or something like that. So he'll kind of put some constraint sometimes on a project that makes that easier for us, which is very helpful. But it's not always possible. So there's often that question, and then the other really big cost factor is the production values, I guess, of what we spend on the filming of things, and not just the artistic content, but also when we film classes or events. There have been some occasions where we've invested more than others in terms of equipment hire or purchase, and bringing in external production crews and things like that for live streaming. So all of that is kind of constantly being weighed up against the potential income return, but we're trying to take a longer term view of that. So we don't necessarily expect things to break even on a kind of event or project basis, because it's trying to see the kind of greater sum of its parts sort of thing. So we might make a certain amount of money from a single project, but if we know that project was a gateway into membership, and then as a result of that, people are now paying for other things, it's trying to take that kind of broader view. But that makes it difficult to do financial planning.
Of course, no, I think taking that longer view is super critical, and thinking a lot about, what are the longer term benefits of these things, and not just the immediate financial return from the project. So I think that's great. Well, I just want to thank you, Kate and Antonia, so much for both spending the time with us to put together the case that everyone just saw, and also for answering all of your questions. We got through all of them, which is great. And I'm going to turn it over to Bray now to close us out, but thank everyone so much for the time. And thanks especially to Kate and Antonia for spending the hour with us.
Yes, let me echo my thanks, and thanks for your generosity. Everyone is trying to figure this out, and so I know we're all very appreciative of your willingness to share your experience. A quick reminder that everyone attending today will receive a summary and recording of the session. It'll be in the Spotlight newsletter. It'll also be on our website tomorrow in case you want to share with some of your colleagues who did not attend. If you don't currently receive ABA's newsletter, but you would like to, you can join our mailing list through our website, which is advisoryarts.com. Finally, we'd love your feedback, so please do take the poll you'll see appear on the screen here shortly. The poll will launch here. There it is. Lastly, while you're doing the poll, I'm going to take a final moment to thank our guests, Kate Carter and Antonia Brownlee from Scottish Ballet. Thank you for joining us and sharing with us so generously about the exciting work you're doing there. And thank you all for joining us.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.